right, sports fans, welcome to another edition of the DC Sports Huddle. And as usual, and always, it is sponsored by our friends at MGM National Harbor. For the latest in Washington sports, visit MGM National Harbor and experience a sports fan's paradise. I am Rob Woodfork. This is Dave Preston with all of his things, and that he doesn't come empty-handed. He comes.
Can the guy bring stuff?
You can bring stuff.
Really?
All right. And George Wallace is here.
To the table.
I see what you did there. And George Wallace is more of a minimalist, as am I. I'm just reading sponsorships off my phone.
It's all right.
And look, the Washington Commanders, guys, hottest team in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
6-1
Something
since
like that.
week 6.
Yeah.
Best turnover differential in the league at +7. They are playing good, sound, fundamental football. And the thing that, and you just...
Let's not go that far.
All right, well, I mean, win the turnover battle, win the time of possession. I mean, that's what they're doing, right?
To start something.
Yeah, I know. You always...
They're playing well enough, and I think that's, each NFL game is almost a season unto itself, and momentum is 1 week, basically, in this league, and they are doing just enough to beat the teams that they face each and every week. They almost beat Minnesota. Otherwise, they'd have a 7-game winning streak if it weren't for a couple of miscues that
That's
week.
the one, yeah.
I think they're 5-2 now in one possession games or
yeah.
something along those lines, and so that could easily be the other way. So you just a whisker here, an interception at the goal line, a running into the kicker penalty.
That's right.
If that doesn't happen, for all we know, they're 6-6, and we're trying to figure out, okay, how do they navigate through these next 5 weeks after 5 games after losing the tiebreaker to the Falcons. But they're in fantastic position.
Yeah.
You play in September, October, and November to be in position in December, and this is where they are. So, I mean, you couldn't ask for much more from this team, from this roster.
But also, and this is an interesting thing, you were in Ashburn the other day, and one thing Ron Rivera said sort of stuck out, because one of the factors that Washington has had to deal with is they've had a number of games where they've had the rest deficit, this being one of them. The Giants enter this game on Sunday, having not played since Thanksgiving.
Right.
So they come into this with
And they're
a
getting
couple.
healthy, too.
They come in with a couple extra days to prepare, a couple extra days to rest, and Ron Rivera, and he didn't say this exactly, but kind of alludes to the fact that having just played the Falcons, a team that plays very similar to the Giants, that kind of in some sense maybe eliminates that advantage that the Giants have going in.
Yeah.
He's starting to sound like me. Before you know this, he'll talk about West Coast teams playing at 1 p.m., which is a lock, for all those who are concerned. But I think you're absolutely right. It's an easy transition.
What are your numbers on your lock, by the way? I think it's gone up.
Just make up a number. Nobody's checking this.
We were, I think, 3-1 or 4-1 in London teams playing the next week without a bye. Okay. And recently, the 4 o'clock teams that play at 1 o'clock, the West Coast teams that play at 1, they consistently lose versus the spread. So it's not gambling if you have a system.
I thought they were winning as
that was last year. That was last year. Even years. It holds.
But it's odd though, because in the games this season in which they've had the rest deficit, they've tended to win those games.
Yeah.
And Houston is another example.
The
Eagles game,
short week Monday night.
But then where they have the rest advantage, the first Eagles game, the Cowboys game, they lose those.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
So maybe it's rust instead of rest.
Right, and it's like counterintuitive the way that they've been playing this season. So maybe that, and I picked them to sweep the Giants last week, so it kind of makes me feel better about that prediction.
That may explain why Wednesday Ron gave them a recovery day.
Yeah.
It was a walkthrough, no pads. It was an hour. There were no meetings. Basically, it was like, get out of here. So
the music was in the locker room, though.
Music, yeah, that's been a thing. That's for sure.
It's good.
It just makes the audio tight. You can't hear. You got to.
No, it's not.
I know.
But anyway,
it makes our jobs harder.
Yeah. But anyway, so he did say it was a recovery day, and they are still a little banged up a little bit, especially defensively. St. Jude's missed again. I mean, that's a little concerning that his injury is still lingering. Antonio Gibson missed practice Thursday. Scott Turner said they got a plan to get him ready. Kind of the same. I think he'll be okay. But also, too, it's a lot is being made of how bad this turf is.
Yeah.
A lot of the players talking about it. We saw that they came out a couple weeks ago, said they're going to switch back to natural grass, or switch to natural grass. They never had it up there, but players say they hate playing on that turf. So it's going to be interesting to see. That's why I don't know if Chase Young gets activated. I don't.
And that was actually going to be my next question. I don't see how you would activate Chase Young under these circumstances, Dave.
Rest him for the bye, and then
I think so.
Right.
Yeah.
Caution. You've been very cautious thus far. Your pass rush is also getting the job done. They're getting to the quarterback, and even when they're not getting to the quarterback, they're making plays like this past Sunday when Daron Payne was able to tip the pass that got intercepted by Kendall Fuller in the end zone. They're making plays that make a difference, especially I think it was a week ago, not the Falcons game, but the previous game where they had a ton of sacks on third down, which is, and took the Texans out of field goal range at least once. So you don't want to mess with whatever they have going on there on that defensive line. And even if Chase Young does get activated, he's going to be a 12 to 15 play a game guy, third and long, stuff like that. Yeah. So no need to mess with that, especially on a turf that it might not be the most safe. We're not saying it's the Veterans Stadium of the 80s where knees and ACLs went to die, but
cement.
Yeah, it's just not.
Right. But to your point, I think too, you give them another week, you get the bye,
right?
And then because if they lose this week, it's not all over.
No.
I mean, your percentage, the odds go down, sure, but it's still not all over. You have the final stretch of the 4 games left. Rest them, and then you get the bye, and then you hit the home stretch with the Giants, Niners, Browns, and Cowboys.
I mean, that's a
winnable.
That's not a murderer's row.
Especially you look at these 2 Giant games are huge. The 49er game, whatever. Okay, Browns for sure is at home. Again, at home, whatever that means
to this franchise.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
But the Cowboys too. At the end of the year, everything could be done. They play the Eagles still coming up. If the Eagles win that game, the Eagles pretty much secure everything. So the Cowboys could mean nothing at the end of the year. Although, whatever. We've seen this team play. We've seen this team not have to do much to win a game that means nothing for the other team, like the Giants and Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
And it didn't go well. But that was the past.
Yeah.
Not getting ahead of myself. The point is, I'd rest Chase one more week, not risking it.
Correct. So, but we are going to get ahead of ourselves on this show because that's what we do. That's what the people want. They have spoken. It's what they want. But before we get to the more global aspect of it, the Giants piece of it. Now, as of this recording, we haven't gotten all of the Thursday injury news as of yet. But going into this game, I mean, a pretty good list of guys who were either limited or not considered super likely to play.
And I think it's not necessarily the quantity of guys, but the quality of guys.
Right.
Benjamin St-Juste is a big part of that secondary.
Yes.
Antonio Gibson is a big part of the offense, not just running the football, but due to J.D. McKissick being done for the year, he factors in the passing game. And I think this past Sunday, all 3 of his catches, all 3 of his catches this past Sunday came on third down.
Correct.
For the Burgundy and Gold. So he has become he's become a safety valve, especially when drives start to bog down. So if either of those guys can't go, it's not going to be ideal.
I think okay, the kickoff return is what it is. That's fine. For me, it's the third down. It's that passing. It's not necessarily running the ball.
No.
But it's the passing attack.
But running the ball, he's a good complement. And he keeps Brian Robinson from not getting overworked.
100%.
So there's that factored in there as well, although Jonathan Williams has carried the ball quite a bit over the last couple of weeks.
They do like what he's been able to do.
Right.
So.
Right.
Here's another thing we've talked a little bit about in the last couple of weeks, Taylor Heineke, this, that, the other thing. Yeah. Huge stat in the turnaround. Last 6 games, Washington's been sacked just 9 times. Previous 6 games, 23 times. Now, granted, we don't exist in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Different receiving core, different offensive line has had a chance to gel, but over twice as many sacks the first 6 games with Carson Wentz in the game running the offense, as opposed to Heineke. Granted, he hasn't thrown the ball as much.
Right.
And even though if you look at the bean counters, will say, well, he has a lower passer rating, he's thrown for fewer yards, his QBR might not be the same, but average net yards per attempt, which is basically what you're looking for, moving the football.
Right.
He's higher than Carson Wentz because of the lack of sacks.
I know.
I mean
that's it is what it is. I know.
Yeah.
I just want to caution everybody because look, and I don't like the they're playing for Taylor. They're professionals. They play. They weren't. It's not like they weren't playing for Carson. The offensive line was banged up. Ryan Robinson wasn't where he is now.
Right.
I'm not trying to throw a Taylor versus Carson.
Right.
I'm just saying if it gets to a point where Carson has to play again, and I still say he is going to play again, I don't think it's all. I don't think it's all's lost. Is my point. I don't think it's going to be a disaster like some people think, because Taylor, look, that interception last week was awful.
It was.
Okay?
But it was at the perfect time, though.
Most of his interceptions are awful.
I know. The last play of the game. If that's not tipped, he's in the end zone. Now that's not Taylor's fault.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, at some point, the tip. Although I've been saying it for a while, but the horseshoe luck hasn't run out.
Well, remember back in the day when Kirk Cousins, as he was becoming the full-time
Kurt
starter,
or Kirk?
Kirk.
Okay.
He'd
With a
play
K.
like Kurt in some of these
He
games,
did.
but Kurt, you'd say, okay, he's starting to put it together, and then you'd have like that Thursday night game against the Giants where he just looked absolutely lost.
Yeah.
Taylor's yet to have one of those games this season,
Yeah.
and I think he still has that in him. I don't think the Giants are good enough defensively.
Yeah,
the way they've played the last couple of weeks, they've
Yeah.
lost 2 straight. It's not just who you play; it's when you play them.
Sure.
And they're playing this Giants team that was not as good as their 7-2 start.
Yes.
And is more reflective of a team that's 7-4 and is kind of going sideways.
Now,
And
I
I'm
do
glad
say-
I'm glad you said that
Hold on,
because
real quick.
yeah.
I do say, I do think though Taylor will have to be god awful to bench him after
Yes.
a game.
Oh, I
after
think
a
so.
game.
Agreed.
After
Agreed.
a game, I don't think it's going to be they lose on Sunday. He doesn't throw a pick. He's 7 for 12. He doesn't throw a pick. He has to be bad. He has to be really bad. He's
Right,
gonna get
but
that.
and I don't think the Giants are the team that are going to make
That's
him
what-
look
I
that
agree.
bad.
I agree.
Because I actually looked at it because
agree.
if you look at the Giants' schedule at 7-4, that's a good record, and it's certainly better than anybody expected from them this season. But you look at who they beat. I think the most impressive win on their ledger was Tennessee, and that was week 1 before anybody knew what to expect from these guys.
Green Bay was an impressive win before the Packers collapsed.
Well, correct,
the
and
London game,
that's what
right?
I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's
that was
like
London,
with the benefit of hindsight, we're looking at some of their most impressive wins, and they're not looking super impressive anymore. And they've even lost. They lost double digits to the Lions.
Yeah.
So this is a team
That's a
that
rough one.
I think started out very well. In part because of the schedule, in part because some teams didn't necessarily know what to look for from them. And also, and this is the important component of it, is Saquon Barkley has fallen off the map almost completely in the
He's
last
healthy
couple
now.
of weeks.
I know. The
And
offensive
he's
line's getting
right,
healthy.
and he's healthy, and I get that, but I think he's been below 3.5 yards per carry 3 out of the last 4 weeks, and those are all Giants losses.
Yeah.
Washington is good at stopping the run. They're also good at running the ball, and the Giants are not good at stopping the run. So this is one of those
So what
games.
are you saying?
I'm saying Washington. I'm picking Washington to win this game.
I think they're going to split. I haven't figured out how though.
I think
Ooh.
no, because here's the thing. Like we said, this is a rest deficit game. You would think this is a game that Washington loses, but I think that they are playing the better football at this point. And I think I think it's a good matchup for Washington because they run it well, they stop the run well. Those are 2 things that do not help the Giants because they are statistically, you look at them statistically, they are not impressive in pretty much any way, shape, or form. And there's also the Daniel Jones factor. Daniel Jones looks like the second coming of Joe Montana every time he sees Washington. But this defense looks decidedly better than it did last season or the year before. So I'm taking Washington 21-18. I still think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to say 21-18. And Dave's going to love this with no touchdowns, all field goals.
No safeties?
Whoa.
All field goals.
He wants the safety. He doesn't love it as
No
much as he
safeties?
thinks.
No safeties. No safeties, no ties. 21-18, all field goals. Way to celebrate being the player of the month, Joey Sly, than to go out there and tie the NFL record with 7 field goals.
10 for 10 in field goals this month.
Something like that. Yeah.
Last month.
He only missed 1 extra point that almost
Yeah,
cost
almost
him
cost him.
the almost cost him the
And he had
Falcons
those
game.
2 50-yarders against
Yeah,
the
the
Eagles, too.
Eagles,
I mean,
58.
that was kind of when this season went from being a maybe to a possibility.
Yeah.
Because
I agree with that.
they
Yeah.
lose that night, and it's like okay, they're not that good just yet.
Yeah.
See, that's a night where the rest for the Eagles hurt them. They were
Yeah.
off since the previous
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah.
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 I've got 25-16. I've got a safety for
wins?
the Giants. I've got the Burgundy and Gold win.
He's always predicting anarchy.
I've got a 2-point conversion thrown in there for good measure because they intended to kick it, but they're like,
But is
we
the
just did
2-point
anyways.
conversion returned for
He's
2
got-
points the other way?
No, that's
he's got a streaker going across the
That's
field and
after
getting
the bye.
tackled
That's after
at
the
the
bye.
30-yard line. He's got a cat running across the field. He's got all kinds of stuff.
right, fine.
I think the difference is going to be the pass rush. They're going to be able to
Yeah.
get to Daniel Jones. The Giants have allowed 3 sacks per game so far this season. Barkley is not the running threat that he was in the early going. And I think that the law of averages, Daniel Jones doesn't throw for 500 yards against Washington for the first time in his life. We're being facetious, but he has had so many
right.
monstrous games
Yeah.
against them. He's just not going to have one this week.
Yeah.
And Washington's going to win and put themselves in playoff position. 8 wins. That's something else.
I didn't
So
think
much
they'd
for my
win 8 all
6-8-3 projection at the
That's
beginning
out
of the
the
year.
window.
I know,
Don't
that's
I feel
already-
foolish?
I think I do think they're going to split. I do, these 2 games. Mm-hmm. So, but I'll go just for fun because it's the season.
Because you're a fun guy.
I am fun. I'll take them this week. I'll go with all of your reasoning.
Yeah.
And I think that either way, whichever game they're going to lose, it's going to be the quarterback, I think, that is going to make the mistake, whether it's baited into a mistake or it's, the defense comes up big and picks off Daniel Jones late or sack fumble kind of thing. I'm going to go with this Burgundy and Gold defense this week. I think they get the defense gets a touchdown.
Oh, wow.
That's
okay.
pretty good stuff.
Let's go
All right.
24-20.
So all
No
this can
safeties.
only mean
Yeah.
that Washington's going to lose because we
Big.
all agree.
Yeah, we all agree.
And that never happens.
Maybe they tie.
So
man.
please don't. So,
They probably will, though.
yeah, because he said it
7-7.
now.
It happened once. Remember the Giants game at FedEx? 7-7.
Oh,
Gus
I
Frerotte
do.
hit his head in the thing.
Oh, my God. I thought we were going to have a good show today.
We did.
Yeah,
I thought we
could
were.
cut that
At one
part.
point, we
Yeah.
did. One brief shining moment.
We should
I
get
wish
out
we
of here
could-
before we lose it.
I would, yeah, really. So, but on the global view, though,
Yes.
as they've stepped into that 7th spot in the NFC,
Yep.
it's theirs to control, whether Dave likes that verbiage or
I
not.
was going to say, careful.
You control your path. You don't control your destiny.
Careful.
Because it's destiny. You control your density.
George
McFly.
McFly. George McFly said that.
All
once,
right.
yeah.
Well, regardless of how you want to frame it, they are in the 7th spot, and it's theirs to lose
Right
at this
now,
point.
be on the road at Kirk Cousins
Now-
in Minnesota with the 2 seed.
That would be
a long way to
that
go.
would be that would be something. But looking at their path the rest of the way, 4 out of the 5 remaining games against the NFC teams that are directly above them in the standings, do we think that they can not only make the playoffs but maybe move up a couple of spots? Because here's the thing: you slide up to that 5 spot, and you're playing in all likelihood whoever comes out of that mediocre to terrible NFC South.
playing
You've got
Tampa.
yourself a path to a deep playoff
And
run.
you're going on I'd take a road trip to Tampa in January as opposed to.
I will take that all
Yes.
day. And Taylor Heineke can't wait to dive at those
It won't be
pylons.
Taylor at that
He's
point.
beaten Tom
Oh.
Brady in the past.
Look at this guy.
It won't
Look
be
at this
Taylor
guy.
at that point.
Look at this guy. Do we think they can slide up? Do we think they can slide up?
I think they've got a good chance. I think the
Yeah.
Giants could easily finish under 500, given the way
Yeah.
that their season has turned.
Giants might
And
not
I
win
think-
again.
I think a 6 seed is not out of the realm of possibility for this team. A team of 5 is maybe a little too much. There's a little bit
Yeah.
too much of a
Yeah.
cushion between them and the Cowboys. But I think a 6 is definitely something that they could score. And and then they'd play San Francisco maybe.
Yeah.
A road trip, yeah.
Which would be a tough
I agree with
one.
you.
Yeah,
I think
nobody wants
I
that.
think 6. I think 5 would be a stretch.
Yeah.
I mean, there's look, and we all know we've seen this movie before. They could easily, go the opposite way right now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean-
they could lose out and then,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it is fun to talk about.
It is.
December 1st, and
Yeah.
they're in control of their whatever.
Gentlemen, before we depart, if I could call an audible at the line of scrimmage at this point in time, Maryland, number 22 in the country, plays Illinois, number 16 in the country, Friday night to begin Big Ten play. It's
gonna be great.
Xfinity Center should be rocking. It's good to have exciting basketball inside the DMV after our winter of discontent last year.
Agreed.
Drop the mic.
Yeah. And I just got to say this real quick about the that Sean Taylor statue.
You've got 30 seconds.
Oh
good.
man, that was terrible. That was
That's a
abysmal.
show. That's a show
And
we break
my
that
thing
down.
is, can we stop messing with this kid's legacy? He's been gone for 15 years. The family was brought up to Washington to look at what was, let's be real, that was a
Mannequin.
that was a display
yes.
that you would see at a department store somewhere. So leave Sean Taylor's legacy alone. You've retired his number. You've added this installation now. Let's leave the kid alone. Let him rest in peace.
There you go.
And we're gonna let this episode of the DC Sports Huddle rest. And it is, as always, brought to you by our friends at MGM National Harbor. For the latest in Washington sports, visit MGM National Harbor and experience a sports fan's paradise. Rob Woodfork here, Dave Preston there, George Wallace there, and we will break the huddle and see you again next week.